Hi, I'm William Jamal Wright,
And I'm Hattie.
and this is our podcast, HattieJo. What are we doing? How's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing great. Another podcast topic,
That's right.
2025.
That's right. So what is our topic this month?
So our topic for this month is our society, are we becoming less connected? Are people more alone?
And is this just open-ended, or is it with respect to something?
Oh, just I think open-ended.
Okay, I thought maybe it was going to be with respect to social media and cell phone use, but it's
you can.
I mean, I know that I will talk about those things.
Yeah,
but that's what I thought was involved.
But so it's definitely incorporated.
It can be broader than that.
Yeah.
Than needed. Okay. Well, first I would like to hear your perspective.
Yeah. So I definitely think that people in general, I think it kind of started with the pandemic. And we've kind of seen this trend kind of continue on where you're kind of more isolated, and you kind of only are around people that for the most part think very similar to you, which is, I wouldn't say is very different from previous generations. But I definitely feel like this generation that is living currently, they're definitely more isolated.
When you say this generation that is living currently,
yeah,
do you mean anyone living currently, so members of multiple generations, or are you talking about a specific?
No, I mean multiple generations.
Okay.
I would say people that are old people that are living in nursing homes. They're probably feeling more isolated and more alone. Our generation, that's in the workforce, people that are maybe getting ready to enter into retirement, kids that are in elementary school and things like that. We are all more. I would say we're all more lonely than in past generations. Even though we have this technology, and technology is good for us connecting with people and keeping in touch with people. I would say we're all I would say our society is more lonely, and I would say because our society is more lonely, that has led to that leads to kind of the best way to put it is kind of our society being so at opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of politically.
You mean it just leads to people being in an echo chamber?
Yeah, an echo chamber, and literally doing really cruel things to others. I would say the loneliness is making people behave more cruelly to each other.
Interesting. So do you feel like that's true online or in person, or both?
I think it's both. Definitely online. You see all the time people talking about how somebody will a million people who they don't even know, they're just being so cruel to them. They'll be they're saying just you should kill yourself or things like that. Just really cruel. Why?
Right.
Why, if you're gonna say something like that, why are you even posting on somebody? And it's because we're, in my opinion, we're just less connected. There's no reason for you to tell somebody to kill themselves on a social media post. I don't know in what world would that be
Is that ever?
Yeah,
okay?
Right. And I think some of that is because we're less connected. The people that are writing that they have very little, or in my opinion, they probably have very little empathy for others, or they have less connection to other people to see themselves in those people, or respect their what they're putting out on social media, or respect what they may be going through. So yeah, that's kind of what are you how do you feel do you feel like our world is less connected?
I don't know. So I definitely, had some like pre-prepared thoughts about a slightly different topic.
Okay,
I
well then go
misunderstood.
into
Well,
that.
no, I want to first explore what we're talking about here before I like change direction.
Okay.
So do I think we're less connected? I think in some ways we are less connected. But in other ways I think we're more connected. And I don't know that that's a good thing. So I guess what I would say, I feel in some ways we're less connected. If you think kind of back to stereotypical 1950s kind of time frame or even prior, there might be one person in the family that goes to work, other people in the family that go to school, and then everybody goes to church or some other type of community event.
Yeah.
And I definitely feel that participation in that type of endeavor has drastically decreased as a frequency of our overall society that's participating in those things. And I think that, to your point, when there's more of that routine and you consistently are doing those things, that increases your sense of community and involvement within the community. And so when that kind of stops, it is a lot easier to feel more isolated. And I think that our world is a little bit more an international world, so it's more common for people to move states from where they grew up or move countries even.
Yes.
And I think that's true of our parents' generation as well, but the prior my grandparents' generation, I think it still happened, but it wasn't nearly as common.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And so I think that is also right. You might have grown up with a community, and maybe it wasn't through the church, but maybe you participated in soccer, right? And grew up doing that, and then coached doing that, or like whatever the youth sport is, or some other type of connecting engagement endeavor. And so then to transplant yourself to a whole new state where now you don't have your family, you don't have any of the it can be very isolating. So I think in that regard, things are more isolating. But I also think back to, and again, this is all like my preconceived notion. I've only lived my own life experience, 1988 and forward. But I do feel like in the past, there would be a lot of loneliness and isolation because people would go off to war, or people would go, they would still have to move away to go work on a farm to provide for their family, and they wouldn't even be able to go back for holidays, right? Because they're so busy trying to, it's I'm now a farmhand, I'm working on the farm, and I'm sending money back, and I'm not gonna take the train back except maybe Christmas Eve, right? And now you might have more of a community because where you're at, you're working and everyone else is working and living there, but there could be a similar amount of loneliness because you're missing.
So you thought people would travel
not a lot, but I'm saying that in today's day and age, we do have the ability to I can fly back whenever I want, and we have. I mean, that takes a certain amount of financial stability to do that, but it's much more common and available. Think about the I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the names, but when you're on the Oregon Trail moving west, it's you could have family in Philadelphia and you will never see them again because you are literally walking through to Denver, Colorado, and half of your family has died along the way, the family that chose to go with you. Yeah. And you're never getting back. It's just never right? And I feel that type of thing happened a lot, and there would be a lot of times where, as a woman, if you weren't married off, you have to go be a nursemaid in somebody else's house, or do something. Maybe you're the housekeeper or something, but it's now I live with a different family, but it's not my own family. Yeah, and I don't have the opportunity to have a family of my own because now I am. You know what I mean?
But you're still connected to people.
Connected, but you're still lonely, right? You're connected to people, but if it's not the people you want to be with, right? And I feel there's a lot of stories and people's lived experiences that are still. I guess what I'm trying to say is the human condition is to be lonely, and I think that there are lots of differences in life and things have grown and changed, but I think human beings will always have either a portion of society, or each person go through at a portion of their life or at multiple different portions of their life periods of loneliness.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be influenced and either exacerbated or less exacerbated, or blunted, I guess is the right word, ameliorated, to get our SAT words out, whether or not you have more of that engagement in community. But I think that you can feel very lonely even if you're engaged in a community, particularly if you're an outsider in some form or fashion in that community. And I think that one of the benefits of now is people are able to be a little bit more comfortable being more forthcoming about who they really are, so they're not feeling like they're an outsider.
Yeah, they can find that community.
Yeah, and society is a little bit more tolerant, at least certain parts of society in certain areas and ways. And like I said, I think that, yes, it does require a certain amount of financial situation, but I do think we have the ability to travel and kind of overcome some of that. Now I've moved far away, whereas I think in the past it was an even larger of a barrier. Yeah. I'll put it that way. So I don't know. I think that there's kind of competing effects, and I definitely don't think that the loneliness or lack of community someone might have felt in 1899 is the same as in 2025. But I think that there are different things going on in the society that would still contribute to those types of feelings, and that it just might look and be a little bit different. But I don't see it as like drastically increasing or drastically decreasing.
Okay.
But that's, I mean, just my opinion.
I think about when I was like younger, and like there was always like family stuff going on, and like there was always like family things that you could go and attend. Like it just seemed like you were always around family. And like you said something about like how like when people go off to like college, and then like I remember thinking when somebody said something when I was like going off to high school, like now I feel like when people go off to college, there's a smaller percentage of them going back to like their hometowns to work. Like most people are like, oh, like I go off to college and then I'm gonna find like the best paying job that I can, and no matter where that is, like that's where I'm gonna go. Like it's not like, oh, I'm going off to college, and once I'm done with college, I'm gonna go back to my hometown, and I'm gonna work there.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, I think people still do that, but I absolutely agree that the frequency, like if you look at
it's just a smaller percentage.
Yeah, it's just a much smaller percentage. I agree.
Yeah, and so I think that is like, I wouldn't necessarily like, that's kind of more of a byproduct of our society, and like how like you want to find, like you want to give yourself as many options as possible once you get a job. First of all, to get a job, and then also like as higher paying job as possible. And so like that in itself, that journey from going from high school to college, and then graduating college and going out and moving to a new city that's not your hometown, like that creates some loneliness. And so like you gotta find a way to like build a community. Build a community and like find a community. And so I believe that our society, like overall, like social media has not really like, do you feel like social media has helped like the loneliness, or it helps like how people feel?
I think social media amplifies whatever is currently in someone's heart. So what I mean by that is, if you're already feeling left out or lonely, social media use is going to amplify that.
Okay.
If you're already feeling like you're Miss Popular and has a ton of friends and loving being involved, and social media use is going to amplify that. And so I think that the social media is not necessarily the problem in and of itself, but I think that it's kind of like the carrier of the problem. And I don't love that it's I guess one could argue, well, maybe it has some amplification of positive things, which could be true, but I don't know that benefit offsets the negatives of amplifying a lot of the negatives. And I guess that's where I was going with the other point I wanted to make about, are we more or less connected now? And it's, to me, social media is not really the focus of my comment I'm about to make. It's more just technology in general. But I definitely feel like in terms of how fast news can spread and how quickly ideas can be shared, we are way more connected. Right? We don't have to wait for like the mail on the horseman with the mail to come every 2 weeks, right? To get a letter from so and so. And nor do we even have to wait for the newspaper each morning. Right? We have essentially an unlimited access to like instantaneous news.
The articles.
And I think that, again, sometimes that can be good, sometimes that can be bad. But also kind of going back to our comment of like society and feeling lonely, etc. Right? I think that a lot of people in today's day and age might feel lonely, but I think they also might feel a lot of burnout, right? Like there is just constant engagement. Emails are coming in constantly, text messages are coming in constantly, and you only have so much attention in a day, right? And even if it's like, well, I'm not responding to those things, or it's my friends, I don't mind, it's still like your brain doesn't tell the difference. It's still attention. I mean, if you actually like look at it on your phone, like, and even if it's, I don't open it, I just notice that there's my little red dot clicks up. That's still an ounce of attention, right? So unless you completely have your phone away or your screen's off or whatever, I feel like there's just so many more items demanding people's attention. And that can be very draining. And if you're not intentional about allowing yourself to have downtime and reset, and I think that that's a very tough thing to do for almost all human beings, kind of by design. A lot of the technology that we have these days, I don't think anyone was like nefariously trying to be like, let's design something that people can't not pay attention to. But the reason why casinos are like draw you in because it's like dazzling and like lights, and like we're naturally entertained by go to the theater and there's like humans doing stuff and there's like lights and it's a production, right? Like we're just naturally drawn to those types of things. And so I think that the competing demands on your attention can increase that burnout feeling, but I think it can also, kind of like we talked about a little bit, amplify feelings of engagement or amplify feelings of loneliness.
Well, I want to go back to what you were talking about with like the connectedness to information. I do think that like our society, we are more like connected to like information. Like we have access to like we could find out what's going on in England right now. Like there is like we definitely have more.
I know what's going on the moon right now.
Like we could definitely like we're more connected to information, and because like there's such a surplus of information out there, it does at times become like, what do I need to pay attention to? What do I not need to pay attention to? Like, do I like just keep scrolling on this, or like do I need to read this whole article so that I make sure I get all of the pertinent information, or can I just read the headlines and kind of keep it moving?
Yeah, I first realized that when we would drive to Colorado for Thanksgiving. It's a 12.5-hour drive from where we live in Phoenix, Arizona to my parents' house in Colorado. And most people would be like, oh my God, aren't you so exhausted? And after doing that drive once or twice, I was like, I actually love it. It's a less draining day than, because normally I work 10 to 11 hours a day, and in my work, it's very much like I can't even catch a breath, right? And then afterwards, in today's day and age, there's still lots of things competing for my attention, and it's great to be like, there's one thing that needs my attention, the road, right? And like, there's not a million things happening. It's, you know, it's not overstimulating, and like, I can just focus on the one thing, and it, like, my brain just relaxes instead of having to be thinking of and doing a million things. And I did not, like, that feeling was very odd to me the first few times I experienced it, of like, wow, I can't believe that a 12.5 hour car ride is like relaxing for me. Because also, keep in mind that on the way there, you generally have school. So I would do the drive by myself.
Yeah.
And on the way back, we would drive together. And so it was like me and Amelia. So we would stop when Amelia needed to use the restroom and everything. But like, she's my dog. You know, it's not like she's chatting with me. It's just me in the open road. And it'd be great. Like, it was so great. And so I do think that it's easy to underestimate how exhausting the constant giving of attention is. And that experience has led me to really try to re-examine myself and my current habits of like, how can I make sure, because truly time and attention are finite resources, right? Almost everything else you can, it might be hard, but you can regenerate. But you, on this earth, you have a finite amount of time. And in any given day, you have a finite amount of attention. And that's kind of dominated by time. It's kind of, they're kind of two in the same. And so learning to be intentional with, you know, it's, if you think about having a bucket and you're pouring a little out throughout the day, it's like, make sure you're pouring where you want to be pouring, right? Because it's coming out, it's draining out, and things are poking holes in your pot and draining it out. And if you don't have enough to pour where you want to pour, like, that stinks. So I do think that, like we kind of talked about, that drain on attention can contribute to feelings of loneliness, right? Because if it's like, well, I don't have any time to go out with my friends, when really it feels like, well, what's taking up all my time? Maybe I do have time, but if you're so sapped, all your attention has been given away, even if at the end of the day, maybe you do have a couple hours, or you could fit in a, you know, dinner, trivia night or whatever, but like, you're too exhausted and burnt out from your attention being constantly given away to things that aren't fulfilling you in the same manner as if you had saved up that attention to engage with another human being in a meaningful way, right? So I guess maybe I'm rethinking, maybe there is some part of me that thinks now we're less connected, but I also, it's hard to make those assumptions. It sounds
like to me that, or I'm kind of reading it as like, you're saying you need to be intentional about what you're connected to, so that like you can have time. Like, if you're intentional about like what's taking your attention throughout the day, then hopefully you'll have time to connect and give attention to things that you want to.
Right. Like, some people like to be by themselves. Do you know what I mean? So like, if you go back to that bucket analogy, and it's like you're pouring it into where you want it to be poured, fantastic. But if you're pouring it, or if it's being drained accidentally into things that don't bring you joy or don't pour back into you, right? Like, I find when I connect with you, like on our date night last night, that like pours back into me just as much as I'm pouring into you. Like, it increases my quality of life. And so it's important to me to save attention and time to pour into those activities. But if I was choosing a different activity, as long as it gave me those same positive feelings, like, pour away into those activities. But if you're pouring into activities that leave you feeling nothing inside or don't give you that benefit back, that's when I feel like it's a real shame.
And it's tough to, like, we've got the benefit of living on this earth for a little bit of time, so we've had some life experiences that help you figure out like what's important and like what do you need to pour into, and what can be draining and what can be refreshing or refilling, as you put it. And so that definitely, for younger people, like, it may take some time to figure those things out.
Oh, absolutely. And I feel like for me, what is refilling in my life has also changed as I've grown, right?
Yeah.
Like 15-year-old me would pour her time and energy into much different things than 36-year-old me. Oh, is that how old I am? I'm turning 37, yeah. Okay. Ooh. So anyway, like when you start to forget how old you are, that puts you in the old category. Like, gosh darn it. So anyway, things can change, and as you said, you need to learn about yourself to even understand what things about you are good quality uses of your time. So I don't know. I think it's hard to assess to your original question, are we lonelier now than before? Because when I think about all my conceptions about before, it's based off of books, movies, TV, you know, like I didn't live those experiences. Yeah. So I really don't have a good sense. But all of that has influenced the preconceived notion I have in my mind that things must have been like. So I do think it's a little tough to know for certain. But I stand by my assertion that I think depending on the life that you lead or end up having, it may have a similar amount of loneliness as now. And I guess I kind of think of this in the context of, I was talking with one of my friends recently, and they were making a comment like, man, so few people are getting married these days, like compared to the past. And I just don't know that that's true, right? Like, especially if you think back to, sorry, Amelia, it's okay. Anyway, that might be getting off on another tangent, but I do think that, man, she's really, anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent here, but I think that my main point is just, without having the experience in your own life, it's hard to really draw a comparison between, or to really, you know, if we were to talk with someone maybe of our grandparents' age and to interview them and get a better sense of things, that might allow us to more accurately assess this question. But in terms of right now, with just you and I think we're doing the best we can. Yeah. But I do think it's hard.
Well, and I look at it like, I think in general for my life, like, I would say when I was younger, there was definitely like more connected to family in terms of time spent with other people. Just like I was more connected. I would say like friends and things like that, I'm probably just as connected as I was when I was younger. Every now and then I would go hang out at a friend's house. Every now and then I go like spend the weekend with a buddy. Like, and so I would say like for me, like over my lifetime, like I feel like I've become less connected to like overall connectivity. Has been less in terms of the people that I interact with respect to family. But friends, I feel like it's about the same. Even though I'm not going to school with them every day, so I don't see them. I don't see them every day like I would when I was younger. But I feel like that connection is very similar.
And you use some of the cool technology that we have these days to maintain that connection, right?
Yeah.
It's not like your pen pals, right? Or like
not that I've never had pen pals.
Yeah, but or I mean the other option is just to not connect with them at all, right? So like I think that a lot of the technology we have these days does allow us to maintain much more intimate relationships with people that we are not able to see every day.
Sure.
Good topic. Do you have any other thoughts?
No, I would say like if you are feeling lonely, that's got to be like a tough place to be, and so like try to find different outlets, whether it be like different hobbies that you have. I'm sure you can find like if you search on the internet, you can find different clubs or groups of people that are getting together and kind of, it takes a lot. I don't know if I'd be able to do it to like throw yourself out there and find different groups to be involved with, but like if you are feeling lonely, like try to get out and find a book club or something just to meet people. And you never know, once you meet one or two people, how that can like spur you into different connections.
Yeah, and I think what I would say is it's very easy to feel like you're alone when you're lonely. But I would say that you're not the only one experiencing those feelings. Mm. So I guarantee you're not alone in that experience. But it is tough to find those connections when you're having that experience. But I do think that with the internet particularly, that can help connect you to others that might be experiencing similar things or feeling similar ways, and that can at least spark a very initial sense of a helpful community there. But I will say the main, honestly, in my opinion, to help come up with a solution, I really think the number one step is to voice it, and that can be really hard. Like you said, you have to put yourself out there in some way, or you have to speak up and say, I'm experiencing this to another human. Like you have, whether that's through a chat room on the internet, whether that's over the phone, whether that's face to face, doesn't matter, but you have to put yourself out there in some form or fashion, and that is very difficult.
And it kind of makes me think of like your cousin that lives in PEI that had the medical procedure. Like he was able to like find a community of people that like had a similar experience, and they were all kind of like
with a super rare condition.
And like they were all kind of in it together. And so it was interesting to like learn about like those connections, or it was interesting to learn about his journey to make those connections with people. And I think that it seems to me like that group really like helped him a lot.
I agree 100%. It's an interesting topic today. That is what we're doing.
Deuces.